Hello and good evening, and a warm welcome to KTS. You're watching The Sentinel. I'm your host, Ngeti Chilari, and in studio today I have two guests, Boaz Limo and Frank Mululu, as we're going to interrogate issues to do with youth governance in Kenya. So I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves, and from my left...
Good evening, viewers. My name is Boaz Limo. I'm the chairman, postgraduate students, Mo University.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Frankie Peter Malulu. I'm the Secretary General for Moi University Graduate Student Association, and I am doing my Masters in Information Science, majoring in Records and Archives.
Okay, our topic today will be youth involvement in governance in Kenya. And when we are talking about the youths, we are talking about youth leaders such as the MCS, the youth reps, and as they have mentioned, university student leaders. So tonight, we will go straight to our questions, and our questions will be about how these youths have impacted on the government. How has this involvement of the youth, what impact does it have on the government? Starting from you, Basalim.
When we talk of youth involvement in the Kenyan government at the moment, so far, nothing much has been seen. We are talking of a government that was focusing on the platform of actually improving youth's life, both economically, socially, and politically. But so far, in the first place, when the government gave me, during the appointments of cabinet secretaries and key positions in the government, we saw no real youths being involved in those appointments. Here we are talking of youths below 35 years, and yet at the moment we have no single youth in charge of any ministry in Kenya who is a real youth below 35 years. So talking of youth involvement in the current government, actually that's just a hearsay. We have no real involvement of youth, except that actually we are seeing our leaders as being youthful. When we talk of our president or some of our MPs, where I can particularly be proud of is that we have a young youth MP in our parliament at the moment who is 26 years old. So actually, in terms of elective positions, we have many youths. But when it comes to appointment into key position in the government, we have no youths. And then another thing where I can just give credit to government is that actually the issue of youth fund, the WESO fund. The government has done a lot. I can give credit to government in terms of allocating funds to youth, specifically to help youths enhance their economic lives. But the challenge we're having is the message in the ground is not the same message we are hearing from our leaders. Youths in the ground are doing nothing. We have a constituency like ours, the KSS constituency. We have very few youth groups who are aware that we have something called the WESO fund. We have youths, especially in my village, there are youth groups, around 3 of them, but they have never taken any step to utilize the WESO fund, the funds available for them. So we are having a challenge in terms of civic education. Our youths are ignorant.
The Jubilee government already in many dimensions, but really it has not delivered. But there being 2 years to go, we hope that they will do deliver. There's so much happening within the government, and one thing is for sure, corruption has equipped the government with the reason that persons are being named from as high as the ministerial positions. Those people should step aside and let us lead a country whereby the rule of law will act on everyone. We don't want a system whereby Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, our president, will be selecting an old person to head some parastatals. We are and we request that very, very soon the youth cannot and will not and shall not stand and watch our country going back down to the drains. We will not.
And has the importance of youth in government assisted?
First of all, youth involvement in the government, it's a cliche. Because one day, when you are told that from the word go, that the appointed MPs, we shall be given a youth share. We are just given the sycophants of the Jubilee government or of the Kenyatta government. We need youths and their youths.
And do you think that the likes of Johnston Sakaja, the youth leaders that are there in the guest house, do you think they are representing the youths in a position?
Before his appointment, Sakaja seemed to be a person who had the youths at heart. But of late, Sakaja has just proved to be Uhuruto or psychopath. He cannot represent our issues anymore.
When it comes to employment, you can see that most of the youths are still tamaking, and it's a high time that youths are given opportunities in the government to serve, because we can see that these old people in the government, they are people who are rigid, and in the government we need to encourage new ideas so that we can see our country going ahead, encouraging new ideas in terms of investments.
Actually, the government of Kenya has forgotten the youths. Right now, there are so many youths who are jobless and they suffer, and that's why so many youths are involved in crimes. Actually, me, as the finance director of Muso University main campus, I ask the government that it should consider the youths so that they can get jobs to become better citizens of Kenya.
Una maoni gani kuhusu kazi kwa vijana ambao serikali imeahidi vijana? Unaona kama imetimiza ahadi yake?
Kwangu ninaona ni kama sio mbaya, kwa sababu vijana siku hizi, kitambo ulikuwa unaenda tuseme ulikuwa unachukua, ukikuwa na mtu mkubwa fulani unaenda unapewa kazi, lakini siku hizi ninaona uongozi walisema ya kwamba watu waende kwa groups. Hiyo groups vijana at least kila mtu apone, kwa sababu hiyo groups niliona ni kama ina afadhali, kwa sababu vijana tuseme wakikuwa sehemu hii ya University, wakikuwa ina group hawajalishi ni vijana wangapi, kwa sababu walisema zaidi ya vijana kutoka 20 na kwenda mbele. Yani sasa ninaona ya kwamba walitaka kila mtu ya kwamba kwa vijana wetu wa Kenya hakuna utofauti kwa msichana ama mwanaume, kwa sababu wanataka ya kwamba kila mtu afanye nini, apone. Sasa niliona ya kwamba hapo niliona kuna mabadiliko kuliko kitambo, kuliko kale. Sasa hapo wakiendelea hivyo, kwanza vijana walisema kwamba hata mkienda kama mkikuwa na group ya kulima shamba, ya kupanda seeds ya miti, ya kufanya kila kitu, na wanasema kwamba mkichikaza hapo hiyo yani mtatambulika kwa serikali ya kwamba, na wanasema kwamba mkikuwa kwa hiyo support serikali itawaona na itawatumanisha pesa na mtasaidika. Sasa ninaona kwamba vijana wakifuatilia vile serikali yetu wakisema hawatapotea, lakini wataendelea. Na niliona kwamba hii serikali yetu wanataka sisi vijana, tuseme nyinyi vijana, wanaume kwa wasichana, wanataka watu wa bidii wa kufanya kazi. Ikiwa unafanya kazi yako kwa mkono, ikiwa unafanya kazi kwa biashara, ikiwa unafanya kazi hata, kwa sababu niliona serikali yetu waliangalia mpaka huko mashinani ndani, wanataka wale wa mashinani wapone kila mtu. Sasa niliona yani walifikia, hii serikali yetu walifikia mpaka mahali hapo mbeleni wako wanafikia. Niliona hapo wakiendelea hivyo, sio vijana pekee yake, hata kwa mama, hata kwa wazee.
But all we cannot involve our youths in the governance of this country. That means we are leaving the most important elements of governance. Because the politicians of today are telling us that the youths are the leaders of tomorrow. But these politicians of today, they have ensured that tomorrow never comes. So it is upon ourselves now to urge the government that the youths must be involved so that we can run this country. When we are being ignored, then nothing can move forward.
Kwamba vijana wakati ni wengi, naweza kusema kwamba ni 80%, na wengi wao wametoka katika chuo kikuu, wametoka katika college tofauti, wengine wamewaja hata shule zao baada ya kidato cha 4, na nitasema kwamba ingawa wengi wao wamepata ajira, bado wengi wako nje wakitafuta kazi.
Personally, I don't have a job. Working in a tie doesn't mean that you have a job. The government has not employed me. Yet when we consider some other countries, we can see some youths, they are working even when they are in a university. So personally, I think the government has totally failed.
So maybe, Franklin, I would like to bring you, but I want to bring you in the discussion by asking you something about what do you think? Has there been an impact of youth leaders, youths in government? Has there been an impact in Kenya?
Thank you, Mr. Hillary. I can respond in different scenario looking on the youth involvement. First of all, we need to look on the genesis. This youth involvement, where does it start and how youth they are involved in those scenarios you are telling me. Going back to the Constitution of Kenya of 2010, it's where now the platform of youth to be involved in Kenyan government and in Kenyan leadership, it has the fruit on it. And I look on the Article 55, Article 97 of Kenyan Constitution, Article 98, all this one they try to envision the issues of youth involvement, whereby the government now is required to provide access on education, training, as well as employment opportunity. Then if you underscore all those aspects of education, training, and employment, it's what Mr. Limo has been discussing, the employment of youth in public services, deployment of youth in political parties, deployment of youth in the law-making institution, which we say about the parliament, the senate. All this one we need now to go back and see from this current government and the previous government what has happened in implementing this. And bearing in mind, like going to this current government, this is the one which it has started with the new constitution. And if it started with the new constitution, it came in power with the new constitution, which provide them that they need to provide access to youth for education, for training, for employment. Then we need to ask now that question from the current regime, what they have done now to the youth.
Exactly, that's why I still, the question still goes on.
Yeah, thank you. Now I'm going now to respond. Okay. Let me respond to this way. According to the way I see things happening in Kenya, things have been here 2013 up to today. Yeah. Still not much has been done, but we see some grace on what is happening, because when you speak about youth involvement, they have been involved now, I see, in the parliament, the National Assembly. There are some youth in the Senate according to the constitution. That's the gracing on seeing now youth, the voice has been heard. But also when you go back to the formation of the public services, I see some very energetic youth over there. Going back to the State House, you can look at the public relation also of the president. He's very young. Maybe we can never know the age, because the youth, when we are speaking about, we are starting at 15 to 35, but looking at the structure now, things where they are going, youth now, they have been entrusted in a very prominent, strong government position, which we see youth, they need to remain vigilant in requiring those positions. And how do they should remain vigilant? Number one, they need to get good skills, they need to be educated so that they can even cater for this position, so that we can never even blame youth involvement, but as youth we are not led even to have those positions. So as so far I can say the impact is there, but we can never quantify to how many percentage, or we can never give it severity, but I accept
there's an impact.
There is an impact.
Okay, Mr. Limo, as a continuation of the question, what as the during the former regimes, really there were no youth involvement so much. Now with the constitution, the new constitution, there's so much involvement. Do you think there's a difference between the former regime and now?
Yeah, we have a great difference between the former regimes. If you compare from the times of independence, when we had the former president, the first president Jomo Kenyatta, we came to President Moi's regime and then Kibaki's regime. Youth involvement during those times were actually minimal. Youths were being used as they were being used for political reasons, but there were no real involvement of youths when it comes to the
leadership positions.
Yes, the difference is there, very open, because straighting back to the Kenyatta's regime, to the Moi's regime, to the Kibaki's regime, we want to see the numbers of youth who were available for and they were seeking even those positions. Comparing to the increasing number of youths now who they are even seeking for job and they are available but they are not employed. So increasing in number of these youths, the difference you see, that's why we can say in this government there is a lot of pressure that hey, you need to involve youths in decision making, you need to involve youths in leadership because they are there. But going back, yes, the number might be there, that's in Kibaki's time, in Moi time there were youth, but the number of youth available in those times who were even able to work in public service, to work in political parties, were even limited. We are very few. So at the end of the time, we see the impact is that at this government, at this regime, we can even see in the future that the impact will be seen when we see the number of youth are involved in government and decision making. So, but looking to the impact of the previous regime and the current regime, I see this regime, it has a lot of work to do, so that they can continue being involved, and not only involved in government position or in any public service position, whatever. What we need to see is youth, they need to own their economic social activities. They need to own their economy. So the government need to provide for the institution. They need to create framework. They need to create the environment so that youth, they can be involved in decision making as well as leading the economy of Kenya to the next future. And bringing to that, because when you are speaking of 2025, you are not speaking to a person who is 90 today. You are not speaking to a person who is 80 today. You are speaking to a young guy who is 15, who is 30, who is 20, who will be there in the 2025. So when we are speaking about youth, the government should see the need of involving youth from the same time we are speaking to.
Yeah, you're talking about securing the future.
Yes.
Thank you. So thank you, Franklin. We move on to our next issue. We have witnessed wayward behaviors recently in various political levels of political governance in Kenya. You remember the Alfred Keter's outburst in Gilgil, Weybridge, and the wrangles in Nakuru County Assembly. Now, is the involvement of youth leaders maybe to blame for this? Because Alfred Keter is not really a very old man. I think should be about 36. Yeah. Well, let us put him in the bracket.
The youth group. Put in the
so,
bracket.
do you think there's involvement of the youth to blame for this?
Of course, from my own perspective, we cannot just generalize Keter's issue to be that youths are to be blamed. That was an individual. It's regrettable actually that it had to be a youth who was involved in that squabble. But from my own perspective, youths cannot be blamed. It's a personality issue. We have youths who are doing very well. Of course, you can link that to another issue. During part of late last year, an incident where we had our youngest MCA. We tried to commit suicide because of issues to do with relationships. At times I can just blame it on actually maturity, political maturity.
Exactly. That's why the question is the involvement of the youth leaders to blame for this? Are they mature enough?
We cannot say you are mature because you are over 50 years. And again, we cannot say you are immature because you are a youth. The issue here is we have youths who are very sober. So Keter's issue actually, it's to blame. It's an isolated issue. We have youths, we have young leaders who are doing a lot. We have take for example our current MCA, Mr. Mutai. That's MCA for Tulwe Chuya Tuat. Hilary Mutai. That guy is our fellow youth. We have had leaders from the previous regimes who have came, they have gone, but actually their legacy was not that good. But for the little time Mr. Mutai has been in place, that guy has done a lot.
So you're saying they are not to blame?
Actually, we are not to blame youths for isolated cases. Mr. Keter should take his own cross as an individual.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Limo. I'll pose the same question to you, Franklin. Do you think they are to blame?
No, I'll remain skeptical on that, and what I can comment is I can comment in this thing. What has happened in Gilgil Weybridge and what the other young, very energetic African leader I see in Kenya, what is happening, it might be the lesson to youth that we have been trusted with the office, and being trusted to that office, there is something we call of conduct and ethics. I think we need to go back over there. Code of conduct and ethics starts in ourselves. If you read the code of conduct and ethics in any public service, in any leadership position, there are some things we ought to do and there are some things we are not ought to do. So if that is the case, then I urge youth, even from now, what you have seen it to tell his case, whatever, might be the lesson. But I even urge the old people and the other prominent leaders, not blame youth that, oh, you know what, if we give this position, they always ruin that position. No, there are very good leaders who they can work, because even back to the African history, we see all the Pan-Africanist movement, we know they started from the youth group. So they were the one who they were very vibrant and they worked very hard to bring the continent to that top we see today. So I even still and believe youth they can do more than that. But what happened in that time, that is the lesson to learn. And actually up to today, I think he's even guilty of what happened. That's what I can say.
Okay, thank you, Franklin. Moving on, we've talked about the youths being, maybe we are talking about the issue of blame. Now let's talk about veteran political leaders. Have they set a good example for youths in governance? Mr. Limo, do you think they have set a good example?
Of course not. Why am I saying so? Our veteran politicians left our young leaders orphans. We have youths who are leaders, but they have problems because they lack that mentorship. Yeah. So our veteran politicians are to be blamed, actually. You see, we have our leaders, our elder sisters, who suppressed young leaders when they actually wanted to grow politically. We have leaders like, of course, Moi did this, but he mentored the likes of our current president, Uhuru Kenyatta. We have leaders like Ruta, who are Moi products actually. But still we have a challenge. The mentorship is not that ripe in our young leaders. We have a problem. Because if you see what our young leaders are doing, you see incidences like we had a problem with MCS in Nakuru, we had a problem in MCS in Nairobi County, fighting. So it shows that we lack mentorship.
I'm coming back to you, Frank Malulu, and do you think veteran leaders have a responsibility in shaping leadership among youths?
Yes. Mr. Hoster, I believe Mr. Hillel, the veteran, they have that responsibility, and they had that responsibility, because we're not speaking veteran, most of them maybe they are retired even now, but they are still have a chance in politics and in mentoring youth leaders. The responsibility I can even go back on seeing to what extent they helped to build a better institution for youth growing up so that they can be a better leader in the future. That's number one responsibility. So going back to the genes of Kenyan government, things Kenyatta, Moi and Kibaki, and today, I think on their level of way things they are done, they didn't do much so that they can help the present youth and the future youth to even come across in this government position. That's why today we see a lot of pressure about youth involvement, because if they could have done something for the government and for the youth, then today we could even discuss another story. But so I try to see that they had a responsibility of making those institutions, policies which they can even guide youth empowerment in the government in the country at large. That's number one. But the second thing I see, there are some people that have worked hard. Actually, when you see on the level how youth they are groomed, we start from home, the family. It's where young leaders they are made. How do the parents treat their children? How do the parents know their talents of the children in leadership and other management level? So first of all, we need to see on the way our family works, because that's the place where you can get this better leader we are speaking today. But apart from that, in primary school and in secondary school, how the youth politics are played in primary school and secondary school. So the government need to put all those elements, that the democracy, how students are represented, should be that democratic, and how do they get these leaders? These are the function whereby our veterans, they are supposed to work hard so that they can put this framework to be a continuity every day in our lifetime. But actually, after today, as you can see here, we are, yes, students leaders. This is the responsibility whereby, because the constitution even give the statutes of the university states that the government or the students must be represented in government board of the university. If that is the case, that's where we are here. That's even the government recognize the involvement of youth, the involvement of students, who are the very youth people of this country, so they can be involved in decision making in the university. So the involvement and the way this veteran, they have done all these things, it depends on the level you are discussing. But currently, what I can say is veteran, they didn't do very much in bringing the youth we want for leadership today.
So you are saying that they have not done enough.
Yeah.